This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Find great deals faster.
Hello, and welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. This podcast is designed by real people on their journey to achieving financial freedom, and we'll focus on people who've either already attained it, who are joining us on that journey, or maybe a specialist topic that can help you build your technical knowledge to achieving and maintaining that financial freedom. We hope you enjoy it.
Right, welcome back to the Financial Freedom Podcast. Today is one of our technical episodes where we'll be talking about and taking a deep dive into property deal finding. This is where we're going to explain how to best structure your property business to make sure you are getting the best deals available in the market. Just to build some authority here, Phil, who's with us today, has been in sales for over 20 years. And between us, we have closed about 100 property deals. So this is based on our learnings from that work. So welcome, Phil.
Hello.
Before we get started, I believe there's a special offer that you want to talk about.
There is actually. So I mentioned to our sponsors, Property Filter, that we were doing an episode on deal finding, and I was chatting to them and they said, oh, listen, so what we really love is if you can talk through your systems and processes for deal finding and how you work with us, but then if anybody who's perhaps used us before or is using this for the first time, then listens to this show and this episode, and wants to extend their trial period, then they can do. So if you've already had a membership trial before and you didn't go onto the membership, or you're going to do the membership first time and you come back and listen to the show again and you didn't find your first deals and you want to say, oh, well, now I get it a bit more, you can extend it by another 2 weeks. And what you would do is you go to our link, which is in the show notes as well. You don't have to get it from here, but it's register.property-filter.co.uk/PPB. When you're on the main screen, go to the chat bot to say, and just put in, I'd like to extend my trial for 2 weeks. My code is TFFP, which is the Financial Freedom Podcast. So yeah, so if you go and do that, then they're going to give you another 2 weeks, even if you had a trial before, which I think is very generous. To be fair, it gives you the opportunity, hopefully, to listen today and then go and put some of those tips and tricks into practice, which is pretty good.
Sounds great.
And just before, actually, it's worth noting, because we're talking about the deal finding systems today. There's a couple of other episodes I'd recommend. So the first one is, we're not talking about deciding on your strategy. We've already done an episode on that, which was episode 21.
Yes. Yeah, we talked all about the different strategies.
And which one's right for you. We then talked about asset classes, which was episode 28. So it gives you a little bit of what types of asset classes you can use for financial freedom. And then in season 8, which is the next season coming up, we're going to be talking about purpose and strategy. So that's about finding your why and how that relates to choosing your strategy. So do like and subscribe, because then you'll see when that one comes out. So this will hopefully get you started, which is what we're trying to do with this series of interlinked episodes.
Yeah, sounds good. Right. So just to kick it off then, firstly, what is deal finding and how is it different from, say, general house buying, if that makes sense? Can you explain that for our listeners?
Yeah, so it's a really, really fundamental difference. Right. So it comes down to the difference between you looking to buy a property that you might live in, which has a whole emotional connection, and you buying a property which is there to make you money, which is there an investment. Right. I'm not saying your home can't be an investment. Of course it can. But there's a whole different set of rules and things that you would put into play between those two things. Now, on one side, where you are the home buyer, you're going to live in it. You are effectively being sold to by, the property that's on the market. It might look good. There might be an agent involved, et cetera, et cetera. So you are only a buyer, right? Deal finding, you are an equal salesperson in the deal finding process, as is the estate agent who might still be representing the deal. So if there's still an agent involved representing the seller, great, but you are also being a salesperson. And the phrase I would use is, great deals are made, right? You make the deal happen. And we're going to talk today about how some of the different strategies work and how the different things you can employ in your business will help you to give you the signals to make those deals happen. So you are becoming a salesperson. It doesn't just happen. You're not a traditional house buyer in this scenario. Is that clear?
That makes sense, yeah. And I think like what you're saying as well, you sort of take the emotion out of it if you're finding deals for investment purposes, the interior colors and things like that aren't necessarily as important. But what I would say is there are some similar things that you can look at, whether you're going to live in a property yourself or whether it's going to be tenanted, that can overlap. Good employment nearby, good transport links, good shops and amenities, things like that. So there's certain things like that will work either way. But it's just a different mindset, I think, is what you're saying, really.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. The principles of why a property is going to work for someone are going to still apply, because you're going to buy a deal and then you're going to sell that in the future, either to a new buyer or to tenants. So the principles of that still apply. And in fact, if you go back to, I think it was one in our first season, we talked about location. I think it was like episode 4 or something like that. Those principles still apply. Of course they do. But the process of the deal making and the deal finding is different, and you are becoming a deal maker. That's the critical, sourcer, call it what you want, but it is a deal maker. You make the deal happen.
Absolutely. Right. So what is the psychology of sales in deal finding then?
So the psychology of sales. So obviously before property, I did nothing but sales, right? So it was there was a service that you provided, but ultimately you were a salesperson. So the things that I've learned along that way are sales is as much a process as it is about you, right? So the first thing that you need to understand is when you are setting something up from a sales perspective, you have to be solving a problem in the world, right? So that's the first thing. So if you're not solving any problems, no one's going to buy your product. The base example of this is the typical thing about sales. That you think of a salesperson, it's sell me this pen, right? That's the example that exists in the world. Well, if I don't need a pen, you can sell me this pen all day long, but I don't need a pen. So what's the point, right? So you can't sell me the pen because you're not solving my problem. If I need a pen, then you'd probably be able to sell me the pen. And then if I need a pen and then you can leverage it or whatever, then they're great. So the example is you have to be solving a real world problem. Okay. So at a fundamental level, what problem are you solving? So in deal making, is it speed and certainty? Is speed of sale? Is it certainty of sale? Is it a problem with the property? Is it a problem with the title? Is it a problem with the seller? There has to be a problem that you solve. Now, what you can do is you can build a list of common problems within your organization that you see, that you will be thinking, well, that's a trigger for me. So a simple way of looking at that is deals have been on the market for a period of time. So if that's a trigger, then there's probably going to be a problem that you might be able to solve.
Say deals that have come back onto the market.
Or return to market. Chances are, if it's been on the market for a while, it might have been off and on or whatever, right? So there's a reason that hasn't sold. So that could be a trigger to say, right, I can now go and look to why that might have a problem, and then from that point, I can look to solve that real world problem, which might be one of the things we talked about. It could be a variety of things. It could be, it could be structural. It could be,
subsidence,
anything, right?
They're damp off in the building survey or something like that.
But the critical thing for you is you're looking to solve problems, right? You will become a problem solver. So deal making at a fundamental level starts with solving a problem. So what you first thing then is you're looking for is timing. Okay, so if I am a traditional seller, I'm a house seller as an example. And I'm looking to upgrade my home. So I want a bigger house. Maybe I'm having children or something like that. It isn't on the immediate horizon, but I know I want to plan for the future. My house is of a good standard. There's nothing wrong with it. The title is clean, and I put it on the market. Okay. So if I do that, what can you do to solve my problem? So what they can do to have their problem solved is somebody comes and buys it for as close to the price that they need to sell it for. Okay. They don't need anything else. So from a timing perspective, it becomes less about time pressure and becomes more about just selling it for the most amount of money. And if it's just on the market with...
And maybe a bit of security as well. So, if you're trying to get the right price and you're confident that buyer is going to complete the deal.
Yeah. So if you're competing in the home buying space, then you could still put something in there to say, well, the reason that I'm a secure buyer is X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
There's two of us who've got the deposit.
I've got mortgage in principle. Exactly. I've got a solicitor ready to go.
Yeah, there's a reason that these things get asked for by the agents because they're trying to assess your availability. However, for you as a deal maker, that's your worst seller, right? That you cannot. There's no what problem are you solving, because there isn't one.
Yeah,
right?
everyone else can solve the same problem in a way.
So if I look at a property and I say to myself, right, it's just on the market, and it's it's brand new on the market, then the timing is not necessarily in my favor, right? So then I've got circumstances and leverage to play with, because there's only three things you need to be a deal maker: timing, circumstance, and leverage. So it's those three things. And we're going to apply those three things to each of the things that we talk about. So timing. So if it's new on the market, you're relying on circumstance and leverage. If it's been on the market for a period of time, then it's a great indicator of there being a problem. If it's, like you said, if it's returned to market, if it's gone off and off and on and off and on,
the price has dropped or
the
something.
price has dropped. Exactly. So there's timing. Then there's the circumstance. Now, the circumstance generally comes down to the seller in a property environment. The circumstance of why they are selling and for what reason they're selling for. Right. So in any sales process, there is a circumstance for that buyer. So when I worked in the recruitment industry, that buyer needed a member of staff. The timing was they needed it within the time frame I was selling it, if you like. So for the circumstance of a seller, when is it that they, why are they selling, and when do they need to sell by, are the two critical pieces of information that you need. Because that can start to assess your problem. So if they're selling it because they've been unable to pay the mortgage, or they're selling it because it's vacant, as an example, it's an investment property and it's costing them money because they're having to pay council taxes and holding charges and all that kind of stuff, then you have a circumstance. They're trying to sell that property for those reasons. If the circumstance is I'm trying to upgrade to a bigger property, then their circumstances, I just need as much money as I can, because I want to, provide my equity towards the next property. Going back to that being your worst seller from a deal-making perspective.
Yeah.
So circumstances, why are they selling? Now, going back to timing, if it's brand new on the market and you see it advertised, chances of you finding that information, unless the vendor is there at the viewing, is lower.
Harder, yeah.
It is harder because there's no problem at the moment because it's new on the market. But you can make some assumptions, which can help you in the future. So the assumptions could be it might be vacant, it might have a crack, it might have a leak. You can make these assumptions as you're walking around. It might be tenanted. So again, you're going back to being able to try and create this circumstance yourself, really. You're not going to know, but you can use some common traits for why property's sold, because there are common reasons. And the final thing is then your leverage. And leverage is possibly the thing that gets the deal done the fastest for you and gets you the best deal. So leverage comes down to, why are they going to choose you as a buyer? What are you bringing to the table that you can leverage to solve their problem on both timing and circumstance? All right. So as an example, if I've got an empty property, it's been on the market for a year, the circumstances, I've now been paying those for a year, I've just reached 12 months, and little things that you can know about the market, like I might have a super council tax application, right? So if it's been empty for 12 months.
Yeah, so the council tax has gone up.
It might have gone up by 100%. They might have doubled it to encourage you to get rid of it, or to renovate it, or to tenant it, or whatever it is, right? Or the bank might be repossessing, or anything. So your leverage then comes into play. So if I'm going to leverage that deal, then they need an answer. So you need to match that answer to your leverage. So I'm going to buy it based on solving the problem. So if my problem is I need to pay back a mortgage, well, the timing is you've not been paying it. The circumstances, I need to pay it back. And your leverage is I can pay it back within the time frame to maybe stop a repossession or stop a court order or any of those types of things, which is still beneficial than perhaps being repossessed, at which point you're not in control anymore because the bank take possession. Now, understanding what's happening in the world is the whole point about this deal making. It's why deals are made, and they don't just happen, right? So, and then on the backside of that is, once you understand the time in the circumstance of the leverage, you're then going to apply a typical process called objection handling. You hear this phrase, objection handling. How do I handle objections? So I'm going to go back to my first example, which is my timing it's new to the market. My circumstances, I'm upgrading. My leverage is 0. My objections are, well, it's new to market. I want the most money that I can, and I'm not bothered how I sell it to whatever buyer. I just want the most money I can. your objection handling is pretty hard going. You know, at that point, it's very little that you can do as a deal maker to make that deal happen.
Yeah.
So on the flip side is the timing is, it's been on the market for a year. The leverage, the circumstances, it's vacant and they need to sell it now because the council tax has gone up by 100% and it's costing them every month. And your leverage is that you are willing to buy it and spend some money to renovate it. You might offer something that is less than they want, right? And so the objection handling is then, why have you done that? You know, so I'm offering this because I can solve both your time and circumstance and leverage. I understand the principle of the problems that you're having and that you're going to have these things. And I also, if you've got experience, can anticipate what's going to happen in the future. So what's going to happen is if you don't sell it, you know, for any reason, then this is going to become more and more of a problem as this time passes.
Yeah, like council tax as an example.
Exactly.
Or if you've got a leaking roof, it's going to get more damage.
Yeah, because empty properties, it's not heated properly. You know, you're going to have all of these extra issues. And
mold could build or whatever. Yeah.
So your objection handling would then be, so I can solve this problem and it's no longer a headache for you, and we can complete within a reasonably short period of time. Going back to the leverage, you know, why you're such a good buyer, but also demonstrating at that point why the price is right for you, right? So, because a lot of the time people make offers and they don't explain why their offers at that level. So there's a deal objection handling process, which is you should make an offer with some information to back that offer up, which is, I'm buying it at there's a cost to my cash. It's going to take me 6 months to renovate it. It's going to cost me this much in the renovational cost, which they won't know, you know, generally speaking. They won't know how much stuff costs at the moment. The agent's giving them a price.
You need a bit of a profit after the work.
Yeah. So at that point, you're then in a good position, which is you can handle those objections, whether that's on, and then you can handle objections via email, by the way. It doesn't have to be
sometimes it's easier to communicate via email because you can get your point across to the agent. The agent can then send
forward
to the vendor and stuff like that.
And the vendor can read it, and then they can read it again, they can read it again, they can read it again. And then from a leverage perspective, you've demonstrated everything that you have. My recommendation is that you then put a little bit of pressure, not too much, on the buying process by, you know, giving a time limit to your offer.
Yeah, the classic one we use all the time is like, oh, you know, we've got offers in for lots of other deals, which is always true as well. So, you know, we can only hold this offer for couple of days or whatever it is till we have to move on to the next one, etc.
And that really comes into your objection handling again, because one of the objections might be, oh, well, I'd like to just see what's happening in the market, or I might just wait for a few more viewings. And it's you're handling that objection by just increasing the pressure on the sales process, which is, well, that's
you
fine.
Can do that.
You're more than welcome.
Only there for a couple
but we won't be a buyer at that point, you know. So because we need to get our deals done, we can't wait around. We're a business, you know. So we'll be moving ahead with a different property. So that's the psychology of sales in deal finding as a simple process, and then you can actually apply them. You can apply them by running systems to help you with the triggers, and you can apply them from your strategies.
So moving on to that then. So what system would you use to operate that, and why would you use that system?
It's good. And this is why this episode is sponsored, and why we have a sponsor with us, Property Filter, and why they've given you the negotiation of, you know, increasing your trial. Because if we talk about timing, circumstance, and leverage, two of those Property Filter will do for you, right? So as a bare minimum, you need to have your deal tracking process, which is offer follow-up, right? Because when we talk about deals being made, your deal that you've done will have been new to market at some point, right? So we're talking about like people, and I'm just going to get rid of the phrase off-market deals, right? Because I don't know what that means generally. It just means it's not on Rightmove, as far as I'm concerned. But
I think so.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much what it means, or Zoopla,
but that might be purposeful because some people just don't like advertising in that space. So
yeah, it might be private
they
sale.
still want to sell it.
They don't
so it's still on the market.
No, yeah. But as soon as in my opinion, as soon as something's for sale, it's on the market. So let's just say,
or if someone's willing to sell, it's on market. In essence, that's probably.
So let's just say you found out about a property for sale, whatever it is, and you've gone to view it, but it's still new to that person trying to sell it. You know that there might be a circumstance, and you know what your leverage would be, but your timing isn't quite right because it's new, and because it's new, you might have to give it a little bit of time. You know, because the number one sales trait that you have, the number one thing that makes deals happen more than you, more than your leverage is timing. You need to have a follow-up process to track every single offer that you make, because what you're trying to do as well is, and this is alien, this is why it's different to your house buying process, which is, I love this property, I want this property, I need this property, I'm going to buy this property. You want a no, not a yes.
But what happens if you get a yes straight away?
Then I've made a mistake, right? So
maybe offered too high.
Yeah, exactly. So you've overspent and you've killed some of your investment, right? So initially you're aiming for a no with restriction to that, right? So unless, and I'm going to put a caveat here, unless it's priced appropriately for both for the circumstance and your leverage. So your leverage might be, I do conversions in this area, as an example, and therefore I know that is priced correctly, and therefore if I know it, others know it.
Yeah, and you want to act quickly so you can secure that deal before anyone else
exactly.
can.
So the timing there is not you waiting. Your timing is secure it today, now, get it done,
get it off the market, off the market,
and that becomes the same again if you're doing your follow-ups and something happens. So at some point in that follow-up process, either it's, let's say it goes off the market, sold subject to contract, SSTC, and it comes back to market.
Yeah, you want to be able to see that straight away.
Exactly. So your timing is bang on. So at that point, your timing is, I want to see it. I've already seen it because I knew I'd already perhaps made an offer. Let's go back to it. Let's get it done today. Let's do that deal today. Let's get it done. So timing is everything. But so your follow-up process is the number one thing that you need to be able to do. And follow-up isn't just follow up with the agent. It might be right to the vendor, right? Because how many times have we had calls from people that with properties that are on the market that we viewed, we've made an offer, and the offer was rejected for whatever reason. We wrote to the seller to say, thank you very much for showing us around your property. We really loved it. We are developers. This is why people like to work with us. We appreciate you might have got a higher offer. This is the reason that we offered at this level. If for any reason this doesn't work out or you become frustrated, give me a call and we'll see. We'll revisit it. Yeah, and that happens all of the time. So
about 40% of all deals fall through at some point, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
At the moment.
So if I know that timing's my number one thing, then I've either got a follow-up folder and I'm manually sending out letters, or if you're clever about it, your partner with Property Filter, they literally, you're using their system. They have a follow-up environment that we write to on a systematic basis, and you can actually time.
Well, the folder is how we used to do it. Before Property Filter came out, it was just a white folder.
Yeah, so on Property Filter, there's the follow-up. I think it's category 4 or something like that, one before the deal. So Property Filter's process is it comes on the market, organize a viewing, make an offer, follow up, deal. Yeah. Right. So it's number 4. Yeah. So it's not make an offer, deal. It's make an offer, follow up, deal. And
obviously in follow up, like you said, it highlights how long it's been subject to contract. It highlights if it's come back on the market, price dropped, all those sort of things. So those circumstances.
Exactly. So if I'm looking to time stuff, then I've seen something, I've organized a viewing, I've made an offer, I'm now going to follow up. So you're either doing that with manual systems or with Property Filter. Now, bearing in mind how much one deal can make you, if you're thinking Property Filter is a small investment in comparison to that, great, you're in the right mindset. If you're thinking Property Filter is expensive, I'm thinking, well, one deal could be 30 times the cost of Property Filter, right? So you've just got to have it right in your mindset, really, in terms of
and the opportunity loss. If you miss out on that deal because you're not paying that fee per month.
Because if you're not, I am.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got to also appreciate that. Remember, we talked about you being a salesperson. There's other salespeople, right? Your timing is important. And then you can make the deal. You can generally make the deal happen. Now, don't get me wrong. Like we said, the timing might be, it's on the market at the right price. So this happens to us. A property comes onto the market, it's at the right price. And normally it means it's a bit of a wreck.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's priced appropriately.
Yeah. It needs some work.
And it might not work price wise for a standard refurb, but we might be doing something different, like changing the use.
And also they might have priced at low A because they weren't B. They just want to get rid of it.
They want to get rid of it. Yeah. So in that case, I'm not waiting for my follow-up folder. I'm probably looking to get a yes, as long as it's within my pricing structure. Now, the great thing about Property Filter is in that follow-up environment, you can set your letters to be sent out, right? You can just say, right, send it.
Vendor.
You can just go, right, send it today, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. And you can do it from Property Filter. You don't even have to go to a...
Yeah, the automation is incredible.
You don't even have to go to a mail service. You don't have to go to posting it at the Royal Mail. They'll do it for you, and you can, and they're obviously getting better at this stuff. So there's some branded stuff available now and things like that. So it can all be for you. So yeah, I mean, that's the reason I thought this would be a great sponsor, because generally speaking, that is the front end of how you can apply it. And that we haven't even talked, that's only the timing. The circumstance is how you can then apply some logic to your strategy.
Stop the podcast now. This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Property Filter is the #1 property tool for today's property professional. It brings in all the data points and sources from all the property portals and auction sites into one convenient place. Then you have the option to overlay all the clever strategies found in the Property Filter blueprint to find motivated sellers faster. Now, we use it on a daily basis. It saves us over 80% of our time when looking for properties. And if that sounds like something that you want in your lives, please go to register.property-filter.co.uk/PPB, which is the discount code for this podcast. You will get 2 weeks free and a discount on your first month. That's it from me. Back to the podcast.
Right. So specific types of deal finding them. So how do you spot them?
Yes. Well, this is exactly the circumstance, isn't it? So we're not going to talk about timing here. We're going to talk about timing off the table. So, but what we are going to talk about is circumstance, right? Yeah. So your strategy, your property strategy, will tell you initially whether or not you should be going to view that property.
Yes.
Ultimately. Now.
Yeah. Will you be able to provide the end product of what you want to?
Yeah.
From that property.
Yeah, exactly. So the amazing thing that Guillaume and the team have done, and if you don't know who Guillaume is, by the way, he's the CEO of Property Filter. We actually did an episode with him, episode 12. So maybe go and watch that if you're interested in learning more about where that came from. He's an engineer by trade, a structural engineer, and he's engineered the system. They have blueprints for each property strategy that you can just click, and it will only show you properties that are relevant for your blueprint. You don't even have to think about it. So getting your property strategy right, let's say you watched episode 21, or you've gone on, you already know what you're doing. You can then apply that strategy to the thing. And here's how you do it, right? So so if you are thinking about the typical one that people come to us, and the typical phrase is below market value, right? What does that mean to you? What does it mean to you, Tim?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's below. So typically on the market with a traditional purchase, let's say I could achieve £200,000.
Yeah.
Relatively consistently at that standard specification in that location. You can go on, look at comparables within a quarter mile. Consistently, they're selling at that range, at that spec.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty clear that's the market value. If you're doing a valuation survey report, you'd be valuing it 200. Mm-hmm. So if you're getting anything below that, you're below the market value.
It's great. That's a great example.
Very clear what the market value is.
Okay, let me reverse this question to you then.
Yeah.
What isn't below market value?
What isn't below market value? So, if that circumstance, if that property in very similar spec in that area selling for £200,000, anything 200 or higher, in essence. If you're getting it for 197, in theory, you're slightly below the market value, aren't you?
Yeah. So here's my typical example of what's not below market value. You buy a property, it's discounted, but the works you need to do to the property is over the value of the property at the end.
Yeah, actually, I would look at it differently. I would apply something like, and here's an example. So that same property done up to a reasonable specs 200, it's on at 150, needs £40,000 of work, say. And obviously the £40,000 can vary depending on how you're managing the work, who the build contractor is, and all those sort of things. Mm-hmm. So you have to spend £40,000 on the build works to then get it to that spec. Is it below market value? My opinion is no, because you need to factor in all of the other costs, stamp duty, legals, professional costs, et cetera, and then also allow as an absolute minimum, say a 10%, profit uplift on that works. Because you've spent all that time, you've had the risk of the works and all those sort of things. So
and time,
yeah. And the time involved. So something like that, you probably need to get at like the 130-ish or something for it to be actually below market. If it's at 150, it's not really, because you're just getting it back up to the value by doing that.
Exactly. So if you're thinking it's a 6-month build program and you want to sell it, you've got to add another 6 months.
Yeah, right, or even 3 or 4, whatever. Yeah,
and that's the price that you think it will sell for within a reasonable time frame.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you've got to work backwards from that
Yes.
position, right? So let's just take a typical property. So I'm not talking about anything fancy here, just a simple property that I'm going to, it's known as flips, right? So, or just, in fact, let's not even do that. Let's just look at below market value as a property. So I'm going to go and I'm going to I'm going to put in where let's say I've listened to location, which is episode 4 or whatever. I'm getting good at this. Episode 4.
Are you sure it was episode?
No, I'm not sure. No, it's season 1. All right, then maybe it's episode 4. And so I've listened to and I've decided on the location for my strategy. You're checking it.
You keep talking.
It's all right. So I'm going to check that. So I know where it is. So all I'm going to be doing then is trying to find a property that I can buy that is apples for apples, the same as one that is sold. Is it? Yes. Go on. So that is apples for apples, the same as one sold on the market within a quarter to a mile.
Yeah.
If it's a high density area, if it's not so high density, maybe half a mile, something like that.
Yeah.
But it has to be apples for apples.
Yeah.
So if it's a 3-bed semi-detached property, you have to be comparing it with a 3-bed semi-detached property, not a 2-bed.
Yeah, and again, if it's a semi-detached, you really have to look at like the land space and the outdoor garden and things like that, because that all adds a bit of value.
Yeah, and I'm not going to compare it to the classic for sale price, right? That's available on the market now.
Yeah.
I might look at that as I can put it on the market for sale. But what I want is land registry sold properties within the last 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
Now, you can apply a logic to this, which is, as the market moves forwards, is it static, whatever it is, to say, it might be worth 210 now if it was 200 or whatever. You can apply a logic. There's nothing wrong with doing it.
Sometimes you can look at the subject to contract amounts, because at least, you don't necessarily know what's been agreed, but at least you know that it's going through as a sale.
Yeah.
Whereas the ones straight on the market, they could have completely overinflated it to start with, to test out the market, not be very motivated or whatever.
Yeah. And you could probably ring up and say, listen, I've got another property that I'd like to sell in this area. It's probably going to be comparable to this one that you've already sold, Mr. Agent. Can you give me a price? What do you think it'd sell for? Guess what price they're going to give you? Probably the sell for price. Sell for. What would you advertise it for and what would you sell it for?
Yeah.
In comparison to this one that I've seen that you look like you've sold. Oh, well, that's all for 230 or whatever. And
the other thing we know at the moment, that properties are selling on average in the UK about 18% below the original asking price.
18%, yeah, absolutely. Nationally, obviously, it's a bit more southern than northern. Northern might be 12, southern might be 20. So how do I find those? How do I find those below market value deals then? Because if I go into Rightmove or Zoopla, how am I going to find them? It's too difficult, isn't it? Because you're just looking at reams and property blindness, all that kind of stuff. There's no comparable data. They're not going to tell you. You might be able to.
You've got to manually do it yourself to work it out, is the point.
The beautiful thing about property filter is you can set that criteria below market value by a percentage or pounds, shillings, and pence, and it would tell you which ones are available in your area. And then you can look at their blueprint. Why is it? So you've already got the general circumstance. It's already trying to be sold below market value. So then you just got to almost reverse engineer it. What's the timing? And the great thing about property filters is if you've got that, it's below market value by, let's say it's a percentage point. I want nothing less than 20% below market value. You can just search for those properties in your areas, right? And then you go and look at the timing and you can see why. If it's new to market, just on the market, and it's 20% below, somebody's got a problem straight away. And your timing, you can predict to say, I'm going to go see it straight away, because that timing it's new to market and it's 20% below. There's a problem there. This person needs to sell quickly and they've gone to an agent to do it rather than an auction, because the agent might have a list of investors. I'm going to ring them and I'm going to say, right, I want to come and see it today. The flip side to that is it might have become 20% below market value. So it might have started at a price and then gone down and down, right?
So the other thing to consider there is Property Field does the average, doesn't it? So of the average price of those properties in the area. So if you're doing something to a higher spec, you can add a bit more value again when you analyze it.
Yeah, but we're only doing below market value. We're not doing flips or renovations. We're literally just doing below market value. So you might see on there, it was priced at 200.
Yeah.
It's now at 180, and it was priced at 200 6 months ago. Then it was dropped to 190. Then it was dropped to 180. So in your timing, you're like, well, it's dropped again, and you can do it by most recent change. So if you do your search 20% below market value and most recent change, and you see one that's back to market and dropped in price, what does that tell you? Your timing is bang on.
Yeah, and they're very motivated.
It's literally paint by numbers, isn't it? You don't have to even think about it. It's like, well, It's back to market. They've dropped the price. There's an urgency here.
Yeah.
And that's the asking price.
And the agent gets your phone call. It's like, oh,
Thank God you've rang. It's a completely different. Oh, yeah, the vendor's this, they're willing to talk to you.
Yeah.
The agent doesn't want to do any more viewings, right? And that can be part of your leverage.
Yeah.
You can say,
look, we've already viewed it.
Especially
previously.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we
don't need to view it again.
Exactly. How many viewings have you done? This must be frustrating for you, Mr. Agent. How many viewings have you done on this? Oh, it's been on the market for 6 months, sold twice. I must have done 30 viewings. Well, if I told you I could take it off your hands for this price, would you support that with the seller? It changes. At some point, it changes for them becoming representing the buyer to just wanting it off there.
Yeah, they want it sold.
They want it sold, right? So at that point, they'll be telling the buyer, just take the price, right? So it's about leverage at that point.
Yeah.
And you can do that. You don't even have to do work to this, right? So it could be those reasons. So that's just below market value. But then we talk about ones that you're talking about, which is if I've got one that's below market value at its current price, and I can see one over here as a comparable that's better quality, and I can create that quality, and that's going to add value, and I can do the works in the middle, and those works that I do are still below market value in comparison to the sales price of the better property that's sold, and there's a margin on the cost of works. You've got a great deal, haven't you?
Yeah.
Because you've got it below apples for apples. You've got profit on the cost of the works, and you know what you're going to be able to sell it for at the end. That is your best possible deal available. In that.
So I think Property Filter does a really, really good job of analyzing it as best it can with the software.
Yeah.
And then you can do the final checks and go, and even sometimes the viewing, but you can do the final checks online and go, oh, actually, this one is better because it's got a bigger garden space, or
you
it's got off-street parking or something like that. You add that theory into it. Then you do the viewing again, and then you go, oh, actually, there's a huge amount of space in the loft that we can convert that you couldn't tell, from the computer analysis and all these sort of things. You add it all together, and the combination of those things is where you create that deal.
And it tells you the residential pounds per square foot, and the residential pounds per square meter. So if your build cost is lower than the residential pounds per square meter, and you identify something like a loft, then you're going to do it, aren't you?
Yeah. You can add value in.
You can add serious value in those things. And that's just on the below market value or the below market value for flips system. And it takes all the data from the land registry, and it takes all the data from all of the sources of on-market properties, and you can add off-market properties. And if you add an off-market property, it'll still do your comparables for you. So it'll tell you, you've added this property, at this price, the comparable data is this. You are this percentage below market value or not, or the yield for the area.
And it gives you the exact postcode, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like really annoys me when I used to use Rightmove. Why does it not just give you the postcode?
Yeah.
Are they trying to hide which property they're trying to sell?
Yeah, and you save all your notes in there. You can arrange your viewings from there. It is a super system. Then you start getting clever, right? So if you want to say, right, so that's if I flip it to a house. But what if I want to do a HMO? Then what I found is something that's below market value. You're getting into our territory now, right? So this is a HMO conversion, right? Let's say it's permitted. I found a house. I'm not going to do any major development works. If I just did a renovational works to it, then it would be worth more than the cost of the house and the works. But I'm also going to change the use, and I'm going to add additional rental income. At that point, you're into our territory, which is really getting to leverage the system.
Yeah.
So we're adding the value both on the purchase price, the cost of works, but then the change of use.
And the change of use, the actual development.
Yeah, because sometimes it depends on the area that you trade in. Your change of use might add a multiplier to your property value because it can give you a value on the rental increase. If you're in a higher value property area, it might not. But if you bought it at the right price and you're getting more rent, that means you're getting more cash flow, and you're still going to get probably the cost of works covered anyway because your residential prices are much
absolutely
better. So I don't think we could operate right now the same way to the same level that we do without a system like Property Filter.
No, it's game changing.
Absolutely game changing. So I'm solving a problem here. So I'm buying something with leverage. I'm buying something with timing. Sorry, my circumstances. I know that my cost of works is going to produce a value. I also know that the circumstance for the seller is that they want to sell because of its the timing reasons, and also that they need to offload it because of they're retiring, or it's an investment property, it's empty, or there's a structural crack, or any of those types of things. And then my leverage is I can solve those problems, but I'm also going to change the use and get a profit on my cost of works. At that point, you've made a deal happen. And the thing that's underwritten it all is just having a system to help you to do those things, right? So that accelerates your path to that success. And so you can apply it to anything, by the way. It's not just below my coast. Let's look at commercial to residential flats. At a very basic level, why does commercial to residential work? At a very basic level.
Well, if the value of the property per square foot or meter is higher as a residential in that area than it is commercial, potentially the conversion makes sense.
Yeah, and that's it, right? So how can I understand really quickly the value of the residential pounds per square meter or pounds per square foot in an area, and then apply that to buying commercial properties?
I think Property Filter does it.
Well, exactly, right? So it's the same process, right? So these are all the sold stuff, and this is the price, this is the size of the properties, and therefore I can work out a pounds per square meter. So therefore, what you can do is you can go to commercial property and you can say, right, so my residential pounds per square meter is this. My cost of works of pounds per square meter is this. So therefore, I need to be buying, my cost of purchase is this. I need to be buying property at this. And therefore, you're going onto your commercial search and you're saying, right, I want to find property, which is of this price or within like 10 to 15% of this price per square meter, because I know I can negotiate it down to that
and
level.
Property Filter, where it can calculate the purchase or the asking price per meter, it doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can't always do it if that info is not available on the ad, but a lot of it.
If the size isn't there, you mean?
Yeah, if the size isn't there.
Yeah. But the good thing about it, it might not identify it for the property that you're looking at, but you're pretty sure it's going to have comparables from others.
Yeah.
So your comparable data will be there, but your property itself might not be.
That's a good point, actually. So if you're looking at something that's, say, a commercial property in that area and you don't have the size of it, then you get comparables on that street. There might be the property next door, 2 doors down, that gives you like the square meterage.
Yeah.
Give you a bit more of a guide.
Yeah, but if you know that the property, that they're generally in the area, the commercial value per square meter of that type of commercial property, let's say it's a classy office, is X amount. And you can just apply that to that property that you're looking at and just say, well, I haven't reviewed it yet. It looks like roughly could support whatever I want to use it for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that is a very good point, because it's to point that blueprint is if I wanted to go onto Rightmove and I said, right, so all I want to see is properties of X amount of meterage. Can I do that? I don't think I can.
No.
I can do it by bedrooms.
Yeah, bedrooms you can.
But I don't think I can filter it by square meters.
No.
Whereas on a lot of our systems has a square meter filter in there.
Yeah.
So let's say so we know, as an example, 96 square meters is the smallest size we can do for a Victorian terraced house conversion to a 5-bed all-en-suite property.
A good sized 5-bed that works and has double sized rooms, etc.
But that's for our brand standard, and that's where you can start really applying your business principles, right?
Yeah.
We also therefore only want to be viewing properties that are above that, or properties that are below that but are significantly below that in price, that if we did something to that property, like a loft conversion or an extension, that would be worth doing. And that again changes the game, because all of a sudden, all this search over here is doing is showing me properties that fit my internal fit out. And all this search over here is doing is showing me properties that suit if I can do a conversion of some description, or a loft conversion or something like that. So I'm looking at properties with the right amount of external space or height or whatever. So that is a really powerful tool. And you can then say, well, if it doesn't have the square meters, to avoid me wasting time and going reviewing lots of properties which I don't know, maybe do it by bedroom or 3 bedrooms. And then once you get used to it, you can take a view, can't you?
Absolutely.
You can see properties sometimes that have got no square meters and no number of bedrooms. But if it's got 2 windows at the front at the top and one at the bottom, and then you look at it from above on the satellite imagery that you can just click onto on Property Filter, and it shows a large, double extension at the back, then you go, well, actually, it's worth a viewing.
Yeah, you can look at a few different things, can't you? Because sometimes there's a floor plan by the agent. Sometimes it's overdone and it's a bit of an
3D.
Yeah. And then also you can use the EPC, can't you? Because the EPCs have the square meterage. Sometimes both of them are quite wrong, but they're still a good guide, and you should always do your own site measure on site.
Yeah, well, you do your own site measure, but what we're talking about here is one of the critical problems that most property people have is time, because generally speaking,
yeah, you can eliminate the ones that you know just aren't going to be big enough. Or
if it's not going to suit you because the asking price is way too high versus this residential pounds per square meter in the area, or you need to wait from a timing perspective, or the size is just going to be too small for the price that they're asking for, then why would you go and view that?
Yeah, you just don't want to waste your time.
It's because if you've got a day-to-day job and you see you've got like Tuesday, Thursday evenings, you've got 1 to 2 viewings, right? Maximum 3.
Yeah, you only want to view if you, at that point, you're quite confident you can put an offer in.
Yeah, so you should be turning up, and as long as everything that you've seen in your lead generator matches what you can see on site, it leads to an offer that you might get a no for initially, but you put in your follow-up folder and then you write to the vendor. That's a good system to have because, and then over a period of time, you're then applying the fallout logic, the timing logic. Because if you think about it, it's around 40% at the moment. Currently, deals aren't making it through the conveyancing process. So if you're thinking at least 1 in 3, maybe 1 in 2 of everything that I see doesn't go through to purchase. So that's what the power of that follow-up folder to get you the pricing that you need to make that deal work for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then finally, there's a really good tool for lease options.
Yeah.
Right? So people say that lease option to me isn't a strategy, right? It's a way to control property.
Yeah.
Right? People will argue with me on this point. And I'm open to argument, by the way. It's not me or the highway, right? So a lease option is a form of contract that gives you the option to buy a property, purchase lease option, lease option, to buy a property at some point in the future. You can either do a purchase option or a lease option. Yeah. Right?
Lease basically you're paying a monthly fee, aren't you? Really?
That's the difference between the two things. Yeah. So a purchase option, you don't necessarily have to pay a monthly fee. You've just got the opportunity to buy it at the pre-agreed price in the future. Or a lease option is you have the opportunity to buy it, but you're going to pay something. And then it's up to you to negotiate whether that comes off the purchase price or whether that's a part of the deal. Yeah. What would you want to see?
Well, so a purchase lease option, so the vendor, they need to cover some cost per month, or they want payment per month. So a good way to search for this, and I know how we used to do it before Property Filter, was like, if you see a property that's for sale and also for rent, that could work as a lease option, because obviously they're open to any scenario, but obviously they need a monthly cost or something, and that's where a lease option.
Yeah, so that it's not new news, this, right?
No,
this is how you do it. So if something is for sale and or for rent, it means that they're willing to do both of those things, right? So that's what a lease option is at a fundamental level.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's just something that you
they want to sell in the future and get some money in the meantime.
Yeah. So, but the problem with it is that it's very difficult to find on the traditional boards because you're looking in the for sale section.
Yeah, you have to have different tabs and go back and forth between.
Oh, you're looking in the rent section. And then you have to compare and make sure the properties are the same and so on and so forth. Whereas, again, a good system like Property Filter, other systems are available. I don't know why you'd use them, but they are apparently. Will tell you that this is, you can actually select it as a blueprint. Only show me properties which are for sale and for rent. So if you could go in and you could say, right, I will agree a price with you today of 200 grand, knowing that it's slightly below market value today. I'm going to rent it out for 5 years and then buy it at the end of that period, and that capital growth is all mine. You haven't bought it.
Yeah.
So let's say you can either buy it at the end of the 5 years or sell it, right? And that's the power of an option, is you can sell it or assign it.
You control that property, don't you? You control the equity.
Yeah, but finding it is hard unless you can just cut through the mud. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the good lease option deals are negotiated, so it doesn't necessarily mean that it is for rent. But if it's an empty property over a period of time and you know some of the things are going to be causing them a problem, you might say, would they be willing to rent it to me for a period of time?
Yeah, but if you think traditionally you'd have to ask certain questions of the vendor to get the information out of them, which could be quite awkward. Yeah. Property Filter gives you, say, the 5 key things before you've even viewed the property that you don't need to ask.
Literally, we are ringing agents knowing when the property went on the market, how many times it's been reduced, what
how many
agents it's been with, the history of it, what it's sold for originally.
If it's company owned,
how much the seller paid for it originally. The current EPC grid, and it's the residential prices in the area, the commercial price in the area. Is it for rent? Has it been for rent? Has it been for sale? All that information is there, and all you're doing is it's all in one place. Yeah, and you're just ringing the agent.
Yeah.
And you ask the question to make them feel like they're filling you in. Oh, has it been on a while? Well, mate, a little while. It's been on for a year, mate. You know, like,
I can see 364 days available.
Yeah. So I guess the reason that I wanted to just go through this is strategy aside, all those things aside, is if you've not got a system in your business, or if you're a property investor and you're just reliant upon open market information or closed market information, just for deal sources. Even if a deal sourcer brings me a deal, by the way, guess where I put it? Property filter.
Yeah.
Why would I put it there? Because it tells me all the information about the deal.
Yeah.
You know, if you then find an old advert for it or that kind of thing, I'm not going to cut the guy out who's brought me the deal.
Yeah.
It's going to tell me how much was it listed for, you know, how much was it bought for, how much was it sold for back in the day or whatever, you know. So I've got all of that data. So if you don't have a system that can help you with your strategy initially, then your problem solving, then your timing and your circumstance, your leverage is going to be, you're going to be very hit and miss. And you're not really solving your real world problem, which is I just want to go on viewings that I know I'm going to buy.
The other thing you missed is you're not wasting your time just scrolling through Rightmove aimlessly. You're systematically going through properties that meet your criteria.
Well, this is the funny point, isn't it? Because we're looking at moving house soon, right? And the funny thing about it is, obviously Nick, my wife, Nick, she works in our business as our property acquisitions. She identifies a lot of the
sourcing admin.
She operates property filter every day. We're moving house, the car on Rightmove, looking at houses. I was like, "What are you doing?"
That's fine.
Yeah. I said, just change the filters so it's houses that we can add value to in the areas that we want to move to.
Yeah.
So that was quite funny, to be fair. But it just goes to show, doesn't it, that it is an addictive thing.
Yeah.
And if you're running this investing journey as a business, you've got to run it as a business. You have to have systems.
Yeah. This time is precious. You need to be as efficient as you can.
If you did nothing else systemization wise, and apart from have a system that can sort those things out, the number one thing that you need to be able to do is create deals. That's it.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Right. Wraps it up. Deal finding masterclass.
There you go.
Our listeners, well, they will get a lot of value out of that. They get even more if they get onto property.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to go back through the deal again? Yeah.
So the deal is if you've used property filter, so property filter through our code, you get a 2-week trial. So it's registered.property-filter.co.uk/PPB. So that'll be in the show notes. If you've used property filter before and you've had a trial with them before, you can still click that link, and then when you go to their page, you open up the chatbot, which in the bottom right hand corner is just like the normal chatbot type thing, and just put, I'd like to get in, I've had property filter before, but I'd like a new trial. The code is TFFP, the Financial Freedom Podcast, TFFP, and they will give you another 2 weeks. So if you listen to this and you've listened to the strategy podcast, and you understand what you're doing, and then you're going to apply some of these principles to it, then you can go onto Property Filter, hopefully get the right strategy for you. And then there is some tutorials on how to set that up as well, specifically within the system, because obviously the lead generator, how to do it. But the principles, hopefully, we've given you today, you can go and just do that. And the team are there to help you as well. So they are very helpful, I have to say. And they're all property people.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely. And if you listen to this episode or any other of our episodes, please like and subscribe. We'd be very, very grateful for that. But until the next one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Thank you once again for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. If you want to get in touch with us about today's podcast or any of the learning topics that we've gone through today, you can email us at podcast@invest-prop.co.uk or get in touch with us with whichever your social media platform of choice is. If you think you would add value to us as a guest on this podcast, you can please get in touch and let us know what you would be able to talk to us about. Other than that, we wish you well on your financial freedom journeys. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.